Hello and welcome to another episode of the Family Gamers Podcast. This is episode 420.
Hello, everybody. We are here, and we are super excited to bring you another one of these shows. We are the Family Gamers. As always, I'm your host, Andrew, and I am joined by my lovely and wonderful wife, Anitra.
That's me.
And it is the 420 show. So, anyway, we're going to talk about gamification this week. Does it have any relationship to board gaming? What is gamification? Like, what is this thing, and how do we include it into our lives by choice or not?
Yeah, there are definitely some things I found that are gamification that you may not be happy to realize are you being gamed.
Right. So, can you use this power for good or ill?
Yes.
We'll talk about that second half of the show. I have a fact, Anitra. I know, it's shocking. I have a fact.
What?
And it's a 420 fact. And I literally, my first search in Google was, give me a 420 fact that does not involve marijuana.
So what do you got?
It involves marijuana.
All right.
I tried not to because I found something that was actually interesting. So our 11-year-old has started to watch Mythbusters on Saturday mornings.
Yes.
And I, not gonna lie to you, kind of love it because Adam and Jamie are great. And it's a funny show, but it's family friendly and it's cool stuff. So it's kind of a blast to, from the past. And I just enjoy it. So anyway, this fact is about busting 420 myths.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
Okay, so do you know where the term 420 comes from?
No.
No idea at all? Okay.
Not a clue.
So what I always thought until this morning was that this was like the California police code for like a drug situation. Like they would call,
okay.
breaker, responding to a 420 at blah, 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 reported
Sure.
420, whatever. That is not at all the case. It is not a police radio code. It has never been used in law enforcement officially as anything related to drugs.
Okay.
So complete fabrication.
Interesting.
April 20th is not Bob Marley's birthday. It is, however, George Takei's birthday.
I wonder how George Takei feels being associated with...
I bet he doesn't care. He's George Takei.
He can overcome it.
There is another myth that says that there are 420 active chemicals in cannabis. Also not true. It's over 550.
Okay.
So then, of course, there's a few more, but whatever. I had asked the question, okay, so how did 420 get associated with marijuana? And how did it get associated with marijuana in a way that, everybody does it? By the way, mile marker 420 signs are the most commonly stolen signs in America.
I am not surprised in the slightest.
I know. Anyway, the term 420 originated in 1971 with a group of 5 San Rafael high school students in California known as the Waldos. That was the name of their group.
Sure.
They used the term as code for meeting at 4:20 p.m. by a Luis Pasteur statue to smoke weed.
Okay.
Eventually, they were introduced to members of what band? Grateful Dead.
And it all becomes clear.
Became famous.
Sure.
So that's it. Those are my 420 facts about cannabis. Sorry to all of you very sensitive parents out there. At least they know the truth.
Weird to think that the guys, it has to be guys, who came up with this code as high schoolers are probably all retired by now, because if they were teenagers in 1971,
that's 55 years ago.
Yeah, they've got to all be in their 70s. Early 70s by now.
That's crazy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Wonder how they feel about that as their
I bet they
legacy.
laugh hard because 420 is World Pot Day or whatever it's because it's insane. It's the popularity is crazy, but really it's not because of them. It's because of the Grateful Dead.
Right.
But anyway, you have a fact from our sponsor, not pot related.
Yes. Did you know that you can talk to our sponsor, First Move Financial, for free? This has, in fact, always been the case, but people don't seem to believe it, or they tune out by the time I say free at the end of the sponsor message.
Which is weird, because free is usually the word that perks my ears up.
Free. First Move is a fee-only firm, which means that until you sign on as a client, you are not paying to talk to them. Speaking of their fee, it's different than many other advisors. Instead of focusing solely on clients that already have millions saved, First Move wants to be able to help younger clients as well that have more income than savings. So their fee is based on your income and your net worth, not on how much you invest with them. If you're curious what it would cost to get help from First Move, you can visit firstmovefinancial.com/familygamers. And if you scroll down, there is a calculator there where you enter your income and your net worth, and it will tell you your estimated monthly fee to work with First Move.
All right, thanks so much to First Move Financial for sponsoring another episode of the show. So, Anitra, we have played a few new games this past couple of weeks.
And worked on playing some newish games more.
Yeah, we played some good stuff. So let's get started at the top with a gorgeous game. I think this game is beautiful. You think this game is beautiful?
It is beautiful.
It is a beautiful game. And this is the game Dragonarium from Wonderful World Board Games. So Wonderful World is coming out with a bunch of just gorgeous stuff. The art on their stuff is outstanding. I first saw their art when we were getting ready for PAX Unplugged last year, and every single game that they release has stellar art. So let's talk about Dragonarium, because I got to be honest with you, what I thought this game was going in was not what I thought this game was going out. And that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, so you kind of sold it to me as it's supposed to be kind of like King Domino, but there's some additional scoring mechanisms. And I'm like, okay, sure, let's take a look at it. It is only like King Domino in that there are domino type pieces, and the larger area you can make with them, the higher score you can be.
There's a multiplier in there as well. So there are some similarities, but the entire placement mechanics of this game are totally different from King Domino.
Yeah. After we played it, you looked at me and you're like, yeah, I think this is more complicated even than King Domino Origins.
Yes. So in Dragonarium, the goal of the game, I don't even know what the plot goal, because every one of these games has some ostensible concept of what you're trying to do. You're growing dragons, I guess.
You're trying to prove yourself like the best dragon keeper.
Sure.
Something like that.
Sure. That feels like what you would do when you have a game with dragons in it.
Yeah.
Right. So this game is on a 5x5 grid, but with all the four corners cut out of it. And you are, in fact, taking these domino pieces from a common pool, sort of like King Domino, and you are placing them into your grid. There's a couple of things on these pieces. First of all, there are these column tokens, which are squares. And so the pieces could have either a color on them, which may or may not correspond to the color of the egg that you would get if you score it. Usually they do, but sometimes they don't. Or it could have this tile picture where you would get more of these single square columns.
Pillars, I think.
Pillars is what they're called. And as you move your helper around, Anitra will talk about that in a minute. As you move your helper around, you put gems on the colored spaces. They have little spaces to put gems on, and it says what color gem it needs to be. It can be green for earth, red for fire, or blue for water.
Something like that, yeah.
Right. There are also yellow squares, which are wilds, but they have to have multiple gems that match whatever color it is that you decide to make them be. They just have to match.
Yeah, I would say the big thing that I had to understand about these gold ones is the gold ones are certainly worth points at the end, and the gold dragons are worth points in a way that the other dragons are not. Mm-hmm. But during the game, as you're playing the game, the gold tiles actually don't help you in any way, whereas the red and blue and green ones and the pillar tiles can give you some kind of benefit as you go along.
Right. So the helper allows you to put the gems on. Again, Anitra will explain that in a minute. But the goal is to fill up each of the tiles with all of the gems in the gem spaces. And then once it's full, you can place another domino tile on top of the full tiles. And that hatches an egg of that color, which allows you to place a dragon on top of some of your tiles.
Yeah. So you're only allowed to overlap tiles once they're full of gems. Mm-hmm. But when you hatch an egg, you can then place that dragon pretty much anywhere you want in the grid. It doesn't have to be right where you overlapped.
Right. So the dragon does two things. Number one, once there's a dragon down, you can't put any more tiles on top of that square.
Yes.
And number two, the dragon turns that square into that color in addition to whatever color it is.
Yes.
So if you put a new tile down and the tile on top is red, but that egg you hatched was blue, if you put the blue dragon on the red tile, that square is now both blue and red, and you cannot build anything else on it.
Yes.
However, you don't have to put the dragon directly on top of the tile that you just scored. You could actually put it anywhere.
Right.
it's quickly getting very complicated. So the goal of the game is to make the largest areas with the highest areas, because that's the multiplier, is the max height of the highest area times the number of squares that area is. And you're going to score that for all 4 colors, for red, for green, for blue, and for yellow.
Yeah. So this is where the gold ones come in. Also, the gold dragons are also worth points at the end of the game.
That's right. The other dragons only change colors. The gold dragons are individually also worth points themselves.
In their own right. In addition to adding on to your gold area for points there.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that comes together. So you're trying to balance out making the largest areas possible and overlap them in just the right ways so that you can, make each one of them large and build them up in height. I think the highest I've ever managed at this point was to get something up to height 5.
You got to 5? I've only gotten to, I think, 3.
With like a dragon on it, so it counted towards being 5 high for multiple colors.
That's crazy.
It was kind of crazy. But all of this, how do you put the gems on? So at the end of your turn, after you've placed a tile down, you have this little like helper marker that marches around the outside of your board. And at the end of your turn, you pick one of those 3 colors, green, blue, or red.
Unrelated to the tile you placed.
Yeah. And for the largest area in that color, you move the helper that many spaces and you can put 1 gem of that color down where the marker is pointing, at each step.
So the marker is traveling around the perimeter of the board.
Yeah.
Which actually does something interesting. So I mentioned it is a 5x5 board with the corners cut out. So when it goes into that corner, you actually can choose, is it going to fill a gem on the row or the gem on the column that it's related to, right? And so that's what makes those corners really interesting, because that's how you can kind of double up on a given tile as you're moving around.
Yeah. So that's sort of the additional layer of strategy in on top of all of the rest of this, where it's like, okay, well, I'm trying to overlap things and the dragons help me make larger areas and all of that makes sense. But you only place gems as you move this thing around. And so there's this level of strategy to it where you're looking and saying, well, I just placed a green tile, but this is going to be my last chance to stick a red in this one spot where I really want to be able to cover it. So, unless I want to wait 2 more turns to be able to do the red, I think I'm going to have to go with red, even if it's fewer steps or, I don't get to do as much with it. I really, really need that 1 gem in that one place to do what I want to do next.
Right. So obviously we talked about this because this is kind of our first time talking about this game on the show. We have been playing it a bunch. It is on BGA. I think it's in beta.
It's in beta right now.
Beta, so you need to be a paid customer on Board Game Arena if you want to play it on BGA. I have found a couple of very, very small glitches in the game. It's in beta. It's fine.
In beta. That's normal.
Right. It's fine on the table. This game plays up to 4 players. And even with multiple players, the game moves pretty quickly. So I really like that about this game as well. One thing we didn't mention, by the way, is those pillars. So one game that this actually reminds us of after playing it is the game Gunky Mono.
Yeah.
Which is a game from years ago from Renegade with a very similar mechanic of stacking these tiles up. So we talked about how you can cover up tiles with other tiles to get your tiles to be higher, but you can't do that if they're not going to be level. And so one of the other kind of currencies that you have in the game are these 1 square pillars that you can use to basically level off a tile. If you only want to cover, well, I mean, you are covering 2 squares worth, but you can use these kind of pillar tokens that you have to level it off, so that if you have 1 square that's at level 2 and 1 square that's at level 1 and you want to put something on top to get the 1 to level 3, you can use one of these pillar tokens if you have one.
Yes.
Insert it in there, and then you have something that's level. So there really is a lot of nuanced strategy in this game that is otherwise fairly simple. The core mechanics of this game are not difficult to understand, as long as you have someone there who knows what they're talking about. Yeah. So this is a game that you can play multi-generationally. But
I will also say the way all of the mechanics interact make it a very thinky game.
Yes, I think it's very thinky, but I also think that all of the interactions are very obvious. And so if you show this game to like an 8-year-old, the concept of this guy's moving around the outside and you can pick a row or a column, like none of those things are like deep think concepts, right? So a younger player could play this game, or a air quote lesser gamer could play this game and, have a good time with it. It's just a question of when you hit final scoring, are they going to have understood all of the concepts to get a great multiplier and get a high final score? So the concepts are straightforward. The merging of those concepts for success is much more complicated.
I mostly agree with you. I am going to want to try to play this, certainly with our youngest, maybe with somebody younger than him, just to kind of gut check this, because my feeling is that kids could get frustrated with this game because there's a certain level of planning ahead required just to be able to try to do what you want in the future. Not even necessarily about getting the best possible score, but like, I really wanted to overlap here. Oh, but I can't.
No, I understand that. But I guess what I'm saying is I think this is a really good game that like a parent and a child could play with some of those teaching elements, because it's not like the thing that you want to do is so high concept that it's hard to explain. That's what I mean. Right. So I think you're right. I think that if someone isn't brought along and they're not a complex gamer, whether that's by age or by preference or whatever, I agree. There could be some frustration there. And like, what the heck? I'm just trying to do this stupid thing. Yeah. But it's not hard to draw the lines to how you do the thing that you want to do.
Fair.
Right. And that's kind of what I'm saying with this game, I think. I said 8. It's got to be a really precocious 8-year-old. I think probably 10 is the lower bound on this game for like normal human beings.
I believe 10 plus is what the box says.
Okay. I think that I'm fine with that. But I do think like if you're in a gamer family and your kids all play games and you've got a kid who you're like, that kid's going to have 150, 200 board games in their house when they're older, they're going to be able to grok this game at 8, I think. So that's Dragonarium from Wonderful World Board Games. Having a lot of fun with it. Going to be reviewing this one hopefully in the next month.
Yeah. Speaking of reviewing, we have also been playing some more Iliad.
Love this game. This game is great because I never really know who's going to win until we're done scoring.
Yeah, honestly, like, it sounds ridiculous to say that's one of the things we like about it, but it is one of the things I like about it because especially in a 2-player game, and Iliad is only for 2 players, it really keeps the tension high in the game without making it necessarily more adversarial. That there are lots of other 2-player games that we play where if somebody is just wiping the floor with you, it becomes obvious.
Yeah.
And Iliad, we have had so many weird upsets or last-minute changes, or the score ends up being super close. It's really hard to tell most of the time. Like, I can envision a scenario where you would get halfway through the game and be like, well, that's it. You're definitely winning.
Well, even then, one of the nice things about this game is that this is a game of small victories.
Yes, over and over again.
Over and over again. And then there's kind of the final battle of it all, which is the final scoring. So even if you're halfway through the game and you're like, wow, I am just sucking it up, you can still say, well, like, let me win a couple of these rows or a couple of these columns, right? Just to feel good about, like, you could still do that. And I think that's great. Or you could maneuver to be like, I'm going to drop a piece that's going to complete a row and a column, and I'm going to win them both. And that's going to feel awesome. Right. So you can still have small victories in this game, even if you do feel like at some degree or to some degree you're playing the string.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So I like Iliad for that reason. But there's another game on here, another new one for the podcast, which I want to play. I haven't had a chance to, but let's be honest, this is your game.
So the game is A Place for All My Books. This game alternately makes me feel better about myself and worse about myself.
Oh, no.
Because this is a game written for introverts who want to spend time with their books and their projects in their house. So, yeah, I am that kind of a person. I feel better about myself as I go through the game and I go, oh, hey, but I don't have books stacked on every available horizontal surface, which is actually what this game incentivizes you to do.
That's funny. Can you give like a very brief kind of once over of this one? And I think we'll get into more depth when we've both played it.
Yeah. So the basic concept of A Place for All My Books is this is a not really tile placement. It's a object arrangement game. You are arranging the books in your house to fulfill various temporary goals.
Okay.
You are, of course, also wanting to get more books to put in your house to help with those goals, et cetera, et cetera.
Nobody's going to complain about more books.
I know, right?
At least not the people that would like this game.
The idea of being an introvert is really, truly baked into this game, though, because all of the activities that you can do on your personal board, which is your house, are things that will give you some amount of social battery. So whether that's rearranging books, or sitting down and reading a book, or completing the little projects, which are these temporary goals. All of those will give you some social battery. At some point you decide, I have spent enough time rearranging books. I really want to go out to town so I can get more books and more stuff for my house. You spend social battery just leaving your house and getting to town. And then every activity in town also requires you to spend social battery to do it. So that whole introvert thing is really, truly baked into the game.
What? Yeah. Is it like an actual battery graphic of the social battery? That's fantastic. That's amazing.
But it also makes for a really interesting game mechanic because every time someone goes to town, the day basically advances.
Sure.
And once the day hits the end of its track, you finish that round, and then everybody gets one more turn, and the game is over.
Huh. So if you try to preserve your social battery, then you're out of time and you don't get stuff.
Correct.
A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest.
But also, you do need to be going to town a fair bit to get all of the stuff you need and to do the things that will get you points in the long run. But basically, the game incentivizes you to build up your social battery to max so you can spend as much time in town on a single trip as possible, rather than going back and forth between your house and town a whole bunch of times. So that's where it makes a really interesting contrast and allows you to do things like look around at the other players and be like, I'm doing okay, but not great. And if they go to town one more time, they're going to get everything they need to fill a bunch more goals. You know what? I'm going to go to town, make this round end, and then they're not going to have enough time to both go to town and come back and rearrange stuff in their house to meet their goal. So it's got a little bit of that meanness, but it's the indirect meanness, right?
Sure.
It's been really interesting so far. I have played it both 2-player with our son and solo. The solo version, you're playing against an extrovert who never has to leave town, which puts some interesting timing issues in there.
Sure.
So it's weird. It does not feel like a lot of the other games I've played. It's got aspects to it I'm still trying to understand why they feel interesting and good, but I like it, and I like that it doesn't feel like every other game.
Good. Yeah, no, I mean, if every game was the same, then why have all the games?
Right.
All right, couple of quick ones on here. We played Tidal Blades 2 Rise of the Unfolders again. So here's the preview on this. This is going to be our inaugural 1, 2, 3 game.
Yes.
So in a couple of episodes, we're going to have a 1, 2, 3 of Tidal Blades 2 is going to be our reactions after playing once, playing twice, and playing 3 times. And then after that, we're going to release an actual written normal review, which is going to echo a lot of those same sentiments. I'm still really liking this game. It is gorgeous. It is just super, super beautiful. We'll leave the rest of the commentary for the actual
when
podcast.
We do that. Yeah.
We also played more S'mores Galore, Roast and Write. Really, you played more of this one.
Yeah. I'm still feeling decidedly meh about it. It is not a bad game, but it's not quite what I wanted it to be.
It's not an earth-shattering roll and write.
Definitely not.
Right. Okay. One more that we have played a little bit already and talked about is the game Spring. So this is from the Seasons series from Devere.
Yes. The last time we played it, it was the height of winter. It is now actual spring in New England.
Actual spring.
The very short version of how we feel about spring is it is significantly more complicated than winter, which we reviewed several years ago.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a lot going on there. We've got to play it a couple of times, I think, in a row to sort of wrap our heads better around the multiple phases of the game.
Yeah, it's definitely more complex than the other Seasons games. All right. So the last game that we're going to talk about this week is another new game to the show. You know, I really thought, Anitra, now that our kids are no longer in diapers, they're like going to the bathroom on their own, they're doing all the stuff. We didn't have to do that much with poop, but here we are talking about poop again. Cube poop, in fact.
Wombat poop.
Wombat poop. I mean, wombats look like they might be cute, but I don't really know.
So this is the game Wombat Poo from friend of the show, Phil Walker Harding.
First of all, I think it's the coolest thing ever that we can say friend of the show, Phil Walker Harding. So, Wombat Poo is the latest game from Joey Games, which is the very Australia-based, Australia-themed publisher. They're doing a lot of really cool stuff with being very eco-friendly with all of their packaging and everything like that. This is Phil Walker Harding and his wife basically running this game company. And yeah, they reached out to us and said, hey, you want to take a look at Wombat Poo? And I said, sure, let's look at Wombat Poo. Why not? So Anitra, Wombat Poo, what do we do in Wombat Poo?
You stack cubes.
Yes.
That's the long and the short of it. There's a little bit of a push your luck mechanism in that.
There's a lot of a push your luck mechanism. This whole game is push your luck.
But it's push your luck in a way that depends on other players' actions, which is not as common in push your luck games.
So you make a good point. So this game is way more interesting at more than 2 players.
Yes.
Way more interesting, and here's why. Basically, the game is there's 3 sizes of poop. There's yellow poop, white poop, and brown poop.
I would say small, medium, and large, but sure.
Yeah. So the white poop is the big poop, the yellow poop is the middle poop, and the brown poop is the small poop. And if you don't know, wombats literally poop in cubes. It's a weird thing about wombats, but why not? Might as well major on it. There's a deck of cards. On your turn, you flip over a card. It will reveal some color poop cube. You have to put that poop cube on the central stack. You stacking them up, straight up.
Straight up.
Then you go to the next person. The next person can choose to say pass, and then they're out for the round, and then they take the number of points in the stack, or they can choose to flip a card and then do the next stacking of poop. That's it. But here's where it gets really tricky. If you have more than 2 players, so we played, it was you, me, and Asher. And kind of the big joke here is that Asher and I have, I don't know, better dexterity than you do, I guess.
I get a little shaky when it comes to
so
that
we're
really
up at
fine stuff.
like 10 cubes high. And so we're going around, and I'm like, Asher, I mean, you could go, but like mom's next. So what's going to happen to the stack? And then you're not going to have because once the stack topples, the round is over.
And then you don't have a chance to get points.
You don't have a chance to pass. It's not like you get points if someone else knocks over the stack. You have to pass to get points. So you have to make a decision of whether or not you think someone else is going to mess it up before it gets back to you in order to pass and get the points.
Right.
So that's an interesting, really interesting little tiny wrinkle in this incredibly simple game that I actually find fascinating.
And even if you are the worst person in the group at stacking, as I am, every turn involves this, well, if I pass, I get points for sure. If I try to stack a cube on, I might knock it over, and then nobody will get points.
Well, you'll lose 2 points.
I'll lose points, and nobody else will get any points.
The knocker-overer will lose points.
Will lose points.
And anybody who hasn't yet passed won't get any points. So if somebody has passed, they get the points no matter what.
But I'm the worst person, so generally nobody's going to pass before I start feeling nervous about stacking.
Unless I look and I'm like, Anitra's going next, and we're at 9, I'm taking the points.
Right. So for me, it's a very press your luck, because I'm like, if I pass, almost certainly these guys are going to be able to keep stacking and do better than
Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't
me.
even think about it like that.
It's a really tense decision for me as the worst person in the group of take the guaranteed points, but that also pretty much guarantees that I will stay at the behind everyone else on the score tracker.
I never thought about it like that.
Yeah,
so
because
sorry.
you're not the worst. So in that way, I think it's more interesting than a lot of other stacking games, because there's that second layer of the press your luck, which is also dependent on what you think everyone else is going to do.
Yeah. I mean, I think what I would say about this game, the only real problem I see with this at this point is what the target is. And I say that because, like, if this is for younger players, I don't know why you wouldn't just play something like Animal Upon Animal, right?
Oh, yeah, sure.
For that younger age range. But then when you get older, there's not a lot of, like, mechanically interesting things going on in this game, like that game Power Failure that we reviewed a while ago. I think it's called Power Failure.
Yeah.
That was like really interesting, where the stack is representing pollution that's coming from energy, and there's a lot of meta stuff going on. So at an older age range, I don't think you're going to pick up a game like Wombat Poo, like, unless you want to support Phil Walker Harding, or you want to support all of the good things that he's trying to do with Joey Games, and that's all fine. But on the younger end, those have a stacking games like that, or Rhino Hero or whatever, like, those are all legit evergreens for a reason.
Yeah.
So I do think there's going to be a difficulty with this game finding its lane. But that doesn't make it a bad game. It's just this whole stacking dexterity 8 to 12-year-old range kind of a game thing. I mean, it's a super, like, not polluted market, but like there's a lot going on in this market.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be a little bit difficult for that. But it's a super cute game. It's fun to play. It's very simple to understand.
And I think, honestly, we may try pushing this game to its limit and see how it feels with 5 players, which it's only designed for 4. I would be interested to see where we end up trying.
My biggest concern with playing this game at 5 players is people being able to get to the stack without knocking the stack over by bumping the table or something like that. I would be really concerned about that.
So yeah, we will push this game to and probably past its limits just to see who it fits best and how that works out.
Sure. Well, that's everything that we've been playing. So why don't we welcome our newest members to the Facebook community?
Yep, we just have 3 this week, but that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Small but mighty. Welcome to Scott.
Welcome to Andrew. Great name.
Also, I know that guy.
Yeah, you've known that guy for like longer than you've known me, which is weird.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. And welcome to Megan.
Welcome to the Family Gamers community. We're excited to have you in the community. Please tell us about games that you've been playing with your family.
And let's get into some back talk as well. We had a few people have a long, protracted discussion about teaching manners to kids in board games.
Yeah, look, sometimes the back talk like crushes it and we get a whole lot of answers. Sometimes it only gets a couple. This case was only a couple. We actually didn't get that much interaction at all on Facebook, but like you said, we got some stuff on Discord.
So we'll just summarize because there was a lot of back and forth. Mm-hmm. A big tip was to remember with small kids, you start small, you play games at their level, you work on taking turns and following rules, and also skills like don't throw the dice across the room.
That is an important skill. And we actually talked about that with our youngest. He really kind of struggled with that because there was always a throw in the dice, right?
Yes.
For us, and again, this is a thing that you just know. Like you just kind of roll the dice out of your hand and they will tumble. But he was throwing them at the table.
Yeah, and they would bounce off the table every time. So all of that was from Peter Schott, and he also says, for ourselves, make sure we model the behavior we want to expect. Be a good winner, be a good loser, enjoy the game, enjoy the experience, enjoy the company, and make sure you do at least a cursory wiping or licking of the fingers while eating Cheetos at the table.
I think those, have you seen those finger chopstick things?
Yes, chopsticks.
Do you remember back in the day when ThinkGeek would do like April Fool's stuff and then it became so popular?
That does feel like that kind of a product.
It would become a real product. Yes. Like that's what this feels like to me. I mean, I have to give a shout out to the Joyful Jedi who has a whole lot of opinions about this, I guess.
Yeah.
He says it's a hard topic to button down. I think a lot is modeling play and being realistic about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think that's 100% right. Even as parents, we can get emotionally involved and not always act the best. It's just like everything in life. Apologize and try to do better next time. I feel like I've been saying that a lot lately.
Yeah. Reminder, that's for the parents. You know,
Yeah.
Like we want our kids to apologize and do better, but that's behavior that we need to model too.
Right. And then he says, create the rules of the magic circle ahead of time. That is, if you remember to. It allows for everyone to get on the same page with expectations. If you know you're prone to analysis paralysis or quarterbacking, it's okay to share that. Ask for some patience if that's what you need to stave off your anxiety, or ask for reminders that can help you act in ways you prefer to at the table. Any interpersonal relationship, it is helpful when you say, these are the things that I'm really bad at, so please let me know if you see it coming up, and I will do better, right? I mean, that's super, super helpful in any interpersonal relationship.
Yeah, he mentions it's also okay to explain these kind of terms or behaviors. Sometimes we talk about analysis paralysis and other board gamey jargon. Let people know that there are names for these things, and there are names because it's a natural thing. We all have tendencies to do things which can be perceived as bad manners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as the oldest in my family, I find that I do a bunch of sibling therapy, which, you know, whatever. And sometimes it is honestly surprising with my siblings or anybody else that, you know, we're having this kind of, I'll call it therapeutic conversation, to recognize that, oh, that thing that you do, that's not a uniquely you thing. That's actually a common human trait, and it's okay. And there are coping mechanisms, right? Like that's fine. That's fine.
Speaking of coping mechanisms, we went into a whole discussion about what it means to treat components well and coping mechanisms to suggest to people who don't treat components well, like use a fidget spinner or sleeve the cards or all kinds of other things. There are just people who mutilate cards without intending to, really.
Yeah, and just to wrap it up, Derek Bruff mentions, we have kids who often find reasons to leave the table. Kids are fidgety, that they are, especially boys. Like, all kids are fidgety. Boys are more I'm not going to say boys are the worst. I'm just going to say boys are extra fidgety. And, you know, that's part of this whole thing is, okay, if you need to go to the bathroom or you need to go find a snack or something like that, wait until right after your turn. and then go take care of, whatever that thing is. And try to work their fidgetiness into the rhythm of the game.
Derek's suggestion is when one of them gets up to leave right before their turn, I gently suggest they take their turn and then do the thing.
Right. It's so much more helpful. So kudos to Derek, right? Because it's so much more helpful to redirect than it is to put up a wall and say, no, you can't leave the table, as opposed to, hey, why don't we just hold, pause for a minute, let's get your turn done, and then you can go do the thing, right? It's way better to redirect.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the overview of the backtalk discussion about board game manners.
Yep. If you want to get into the nitty-gritty, please join the Family Tabletop Discord. You can get there by going to thefamilygamers.com/Discord.
So let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about gamification.
Got it. All right, and we're back. So, full, confession, situational awareness, whatever. Disclosure. We are very aware that this is episode 420. We made kind of the marijuana pseudo joke thing at the beginning, and we are also very aware that Monday would have been 420, and the release date for this would have kind of coincided perfectly. We had a family emergency that was obviously unavoidable, right? It was a family emergency. Don't worry, everyone is safe. Nobody is hurt. We're going to be okay, but it was something that took a lot of our time. So we will be releasing this a little bit late, and for that we apologize. And we are eating Ben & Jerry's ice cream because that's how you deal with
coping
stuff.
mechanism.
Yeah, we are literally eating ice cream while we record this. So if you are an empath in any way, shape, or form, we will pause for a moment while you go and get your own Ben & Jerry's ice cream. But not too long because you can just pause the podcast.
But we do still have a topic. So we're going to talk about that.
We are. I don't know how to gamify this Ben & Jerry's, but for all of you who are wondering, we are eating tonight dough.
Yes. So the first thing about gamification, I was surprised to find that this term is in the dictionary.
Really?
Yeah. According to Merriam-Webster, gamification is the process of adding games or game-like elements to something such as a task, so as to encourage participation.
Yeah, that's an excellent definition.
Right? So this is things that are not games with game-like elements added to them for motivation. So learning math or working on your fitness goals or meeting work quotas or other things like that. I also did a little bit more research on what are different ways to gamify things or types of gamification.
Mm-hmm.
There are lots of ways to classify this, but I found an article from Go Cadmium specifically about gamification in learning. And I'm going to talk about the 4 types that they identify. They identify achievement-based gamification. So that's things like leaderboards and badges and status levels. There is social gamification, which includes things like team building exercises, collaboration to achieve a goal, which might be a badge or a status or something, peer recognition. So that's the social stuff. The social gamification feels slightly less gamey to me and more just incentive to work together, but I can see how it can still be kind of gamified. The third kind is progress-based gamification. That is that there are things to unlock as you do more of the task or get better at the thing. So there's a skill tree or there's extra content that you can't access at the beginning and you can once you do a certain amount or whatever. And then lastly, there is rewards-based gamification. This feels like the most obvious one. This is an incentive, either virtual or real world. So you get some kind of a prize for reaching a certain level, or you get a discount, or, whatever. Things like that, where literally you are completing your task in order to get a thing that is desirable.
So this is really interesting because to hear you describe that, I have been thinking back, and the more I think, the farther back I go in my life to remember the earliest examples of gamification that I can possibly remember. And what I have now become convinced of is that gamification in its most rudimentary form is something that far pre-exists me, far pre-exists the early 1980s, which is when I was born. Mm-hmm. This is something that goes way back. And I don't even know. I don't really know how far back it goes, but I would say, we've been actually talking about this for a couple of days and talking about kind of the earliest things that we remember seeing in our lives that represent gamification. And when I think back, I'm like, okay, so like platinum hotel thing, traveling salesmen who have spent 200 days a year in a Hyatt or something.
Yep.
That kind of thing. And I actually think that probably doesn't go back farther than like maybe the 70s, simply because the national chains didn't really exist before that.
Okay,
right?
How about Boy Scout merit badges?
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, see, this is what I mean.
Right?
I mean, they just go back and they go back and they go back. And with merit badges, like it's not so much the merit badge as it is the sash, which represents the accumulation
of the merit
badges, right?
Sure, yeah.
Right? I don't know when that is, but it was certainly a long time ago. I mean, you could go back even farther and say, what about military honors? And, you see these generals with like their left like breast has 75 medals on it. And it's just this like insane thing. I mean, so, this concept, this idea, I mean, I think it almost does a disservice to the military to call that gamification, right? Because those are all recognizing significant events and bravery and all of these other things. And so I wouldn't want to, do anything like that.
And for the military, I would say most awards given in the military, at least in theory, are supposed to be a recognition of something somebody did because it was the right thing or because it was hard, not that they were doing it in order to get a medal or a recognition.
Right. I mean, and that I think is the key that differentiates. Do you think that merit badges were to encourage participation?
Yes, 100%.
It wasn't to get to Eagle?
I mean, maybe some of that too, but I think about my experience with the scouting system, and we talk sometimes about like things that are little dopamine hits as you work through a game or whatever, like small progress achievements. And I feel like that's what merit badges are, because not every Boy Scout is going to make Eagle, right?
Sure.
But lots of Boy Scouts who don't make Eagle are still going to be motivated by, oh, but I can get this merit badge and I can get that merit badge. And if I do this thing, I can get that merit badge, even if they're not really great at pushing through to getting to be the next level of scout.
Okay, that's fair. I think, though, the real one that everybody says, oh, yeah, or at least the kind of people who listen to this podcast, I think, is Book It, right?
Oh my goodness, yes.
That's the one. I mean, that's the one, right? You read 5 books, you get a free personal pan pizza.
So that is rewards-based gamification right there.
Absolutely.
Collect 5, get a pizza.
Yeah, and for nerds like you and me, we were reading the books anyway.
I was reading anyway.
So,
I actually didn't even really like pizza when I was a kid.
Okay, listen. I need you to stop saying that because I love you.
It's funny, that actually has come in handy as a parent a few times when there's been some kind of party or kids thing or whatever, and this one parent is like, I'm so sorry, my son just doesn't like pizza. Is there another option? And I'm like, your son is not alone. I was that kid until I was like 18. I only ate pizza under duress when there were no other options available. So
but whatever.
So realize it's not.
Yeah, but I wasn't married to that kid.
I know. Not so as abnormal as you think. And also you can grow out of it. But yeah, I think the Book It program is a great example of that. And there are similar programs that have followed in Book It's steps that are much more localized. You read books for something and get a reward. Our library actually was doing something like that with their summer reading program a year or two ago, where you would collect a certain number of read books and be able to turn it in for a little prize or turn it in for raffle tickets towards a bigger prize. Let's talk about a couple that are more adult focused.
So there's a local used bookstore near us called A Great Notion. If you are in central Massachusetts, Google A Great Notion. You should go there.
Highly recommend.
Highly recommend. They're just wonderful people. It's owned by a married couple. They're the best. Anyway, they have a program. This will sound familiar. If you, like, for every, I don't know what it is it every book you buy or is it like every $10 you spend?
Every book you buy.
Every book you buy is a stamp. You get 10 stamps, you get a free book. That should sound extremely familiar because you go to a coffee shop, every coffee you buy, you get a stamp. Yeah. Every 10 stamps, you get a coffee.
Yep.
This is gamification at its purest.
Well, I think the term gamification really, like, now that we step back a little bit, usually has the connotation of video game type elements. So while I think the like stamps on a card and stuff certainly fit. I start thinking about the store loyalty programs that I see nowadays, which are all online. Like you check your status, you can turn in points to redeem them to get rewards. Our local grocery store loyalty program, you log in and like select your deals online. You can turn in points for stuff, but it also is constantly telling me, oh, if you spent this much more money, you would get to this level, which gets better discounts or like special days or whatever, or free grocery delivery or stuff like that. It's really...
Oh man, that is evil. If you spend more money, you get free grocery delivery. Not free shipping, free delivery.
Free delivery. Yeah. There are lots and lots of store loyalty programs these days that do this kind of gamification through incentives and through unlocking special offers. So it pushes you to buy just a little bit more or buy just a little bit more often than you would otherwise. Grocery stores are not the only ones that do this. A lot of stores that used to do their own credit cards will do store loyalty programs now.
Well, I would even say, look, Kohl's Cash is the classic thing, right? Because the thing about Kohl's Cash, it's not so much about if you spend more money, you'll hit another threshold, but they put a very tight expiration date on your Kohl's Cash.
Yes, they do.
And the whole purpose is to get you to come in sooner. And then you spend the Kohl's Cash, but you inevitably spend more money and you get more Kohl's Cash. And that expiration date, that's the thing that compels you to return. It's not even getting to a higher tier. It is the loss of this perceived value of this thing.
CVS, at least, used to do that sort of thing with their extra bucks as well. When you got your reward of extra bucks, they were only good for like a week. So you had to turn around and come back to CVS and do it again.
Ugh, the worst.
So, yeah, that's a big one that I have recognized. So that's an example where I'm going to say gamification is actually trying to get you to do something that you don't necessarily want to do. It's trying to give you that little push to be like, maybe you do want to do it. Maybe you do. There's also plenty of gamification out there to help incentivize you to do something that you want to do, but is kind of hard. So for me, I've noticed both the Apple Fitness app and Peloton, which we now pay for a Peloton subscription because we got a used Peloton bike. And it's pretty great, honestly. But both Apple Fitness and Peloton have this achievement-based gamification. When I have been working out, I can see how well I've done in a particular workout, which is just me against myself. Like, that's not really against anybody else.
Sure.
But I can also see how that compares to a leaderboard.
I think leaderboards, by the way, are brilliant.
Leaderboards are not terribly incentivizing for me personally, but I can see why they work for a lot of other people.
Leaderboards are great for people that often come in second or third place, right? Because you know, right? It's right there. Yeah. It's you just got it.
Meanwhile, if I do a live Peloton activity, I'm in like 1,000th place.
Right. Exactly. Like it's
so it's not very motivating for me.
So it's interesting, but it's not demotivating either. You're not like, forget this. You're just like, okay, can I get to 999th place? Can I get that next small threshold? Like that's a little bit, right?
But I will say what's even more motivating for me personally, Apple Fitness and Peloton are both really good at combining all of these things together, right? I really like seeing how close I am to earning an award for I've worked out this many days in a row. Or I've hit a new personal record on the amount of distance I biked in 10 minutes or whatever. Or there's a monthly challenge of you hit bronze, silver, and gold depending on how many workouts you do over the course of the month or how far you cycle over the course of the month or whatever.
Right.
Those things are all more useful to me, in part because I don't find that leaderboard stuff very motivating because I'm not that good.
Well, look, I also think there's value to like the longitudinal record of your achievements over time.
Yes.
Right. So that's an additional kind of thing. It's almost self-rewarding to see. It doesn't matter how high, like the steepness of your slope, as long as it's positive.
Right. Well, and so when I look at all of this stuff with the fitness, none of this would mean anything to me if I wasn't already motivated to do better and to try to continually improve. But all of it, even the days in a row stuff, provides me more interesting feedback than simply, did I exercise today? Yes, no.
Right. And if we're going to talk about that, I mean, I think another element of that to talk about, and again, right now we're really just talking about elements of this in our lives, right? Just places in which this exists. One of them for me is company fitness challenges, right? So my insurance company has an app, and I go into the app, And every day or every couple of days or whatever, I can answer a bunch of survey questions. Did I weigh myself today? Did I drink 8 ounces of water, 4 times? Did I do this? Did I do that? Yada, yada, yada. And I can do all these things. And from that, I get points. And the points I can then turn around and cash in for cash, gift cards, all sorts of things like that. Where when you look at this definition of gamification, game-like elements to something so as to encourage participation. Rewards, cash monies.
Yeah.
Encourages participation. How's that tonight, Doe?
Delicious while we're talking about working out.
Also, I got to say it on the record, I do not know quite how Ben & Jerry's manages to pack so many calories into one container, but they do.
It's delicious.
It is delicious.
What about Duolingo?
Oh, absolutely. So I went to Essen in 2021, maybe? That sound about right? I don't know. It doesn't matter.
I don't know.
And I was in Germany and realizing that I could not communicate with people if they were not speaking English. And I was not in a country whose primary language is English. And I felt like a dumb American. And I did not like it.
And you weren't in a super touristy area in going to Essen.
I mean, I was at the show. So,
right.
Everybody, it's the language. English is the language of commerce.
So most people could speak English, but you weren't necessarily expecting everyone around you to speak.
Look, at the end of the day, I could have navigated just fine, and I could have done all my things just fine, and I could have gotten back on the airplane and flown home just fine, and it would have been fine. No big, whatever. But I just hated that stupid American feeling. So I fired up Duolingo when I was in Germany, and I still have my same streak going.
So the streak is one of the gamification elements.
That's exactly it. My streak, Duolingo is one of the 5 apps on my primary home screen. My streak is 1,272 days long.
So yeah, I think that's 4 years ago, right?
Right.
So
I mean, the reality is there have been a couple of days that I've missed, and so I had a streak freeze. There were a few days where it was 11:30 and I was I just don't got it. So I would switch over to math and do basic arithmetic.
You're gaming the game.
I was gaming the game. Absolutely. But I would say, honestly, out of those 1,272 days, I spent 1,250 of them practicing some German. And the reality is, if I didn't have that streak pushing me, I don't know if I would have given up by now. I have no idea. But it has absolutely kept me doing it. It has encouraged my participation in something that I said that I wanted to do. Nobody's putting this on me, right? I know some schools use Duolingo as part of their curriculum for foreign language, and that's fine, whatever. I don't really care. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I absolutely think that Duolingo in combination with an academic structure or framework would be helping me more.
Yeah.
But I mean, I ain't got time for that, right? And by the way, another great example of this is Lose It. Lose It has the same streak tracking. So every day I'm compelled, if I'm serious about tracking my calories for the long term because I want to lose weight or I want to be healthier, I want to do this, I want to do that, I'm 200 days in. Am I going to, air quote, waste those 200 days because I'm too lazy to put my, what I've eaten in? No. They're just accept that you went over your calorie budget. Don't lie to yourself. Put it in and be done.
Yep.
Now, a couple of weeks ago, I don't remember what we were doing. Oh, we went to the Montana trip. It was impossible to track that. So I made the decision. I'm I'm going to let the streak die.
Sure.
And it's fine. And I did. And it was fine.
Yep.
But it's more deliberate. It's a decision that I have to make.
Yeah. That's kind of how I feel about some of the fitness streak stuff. I have come to terms with the fact that I can only go about 3 or 4 weeks before something comes up where I get sick or a day is super busy, but not busy in a physical sense. I just don't have any time to even go for a walk.
Right.
And I've come to terms with it for myself that I'm going to have those days and I'm not going to beat myself up about it.
Mm-hmm.
But frankly, having to tell myself that feels like a much healthier, more helpful thing than constantly beating myself up for not exercising.
Right. Even though you have no parameters or requirements or definitions around what that looks like, you're just in this guilt spiral because you haven't accomplished the thing that you have no real framework around accomplishing.
Yeah. So this is part of what we're talking about here. So the gamification gives you a framework as well as
as well as an
incentives
encouragement.
and encouragement.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So that was, I don't have to go to therapy this week. That's fantastic. I love that. Thank you very much, Anitra. That was perfect. Hopefully some other people were listening were like, oh my gosh, that's so whatever. But really, like, the whole point of us talking about this is, how does that translate to families? How does that translate to kids? Is this something that we can use outside of the gaming world? By the way, the ultimate metagame here is the 5x5. It's games in a gamification context.
Yes, I was actually thinking another great meta gaming example is the balancing mods and the way you level up in the Board Games for All Ages help for kids.
Yeah, sure, because the game is the game that you're playing, but the other game is the ability for these kids to reach these thresholds to be able to play the full game.
Yeah.
So I love that too. Yeah, that was our goal with this episode, to kind of just a breakdown of like how gamification impacts our lives for real, and just like an honest conversation between us that hopefully will resonate with some of you, and then talking about how we can use this, or how we may already be using it, maybe without even knowing, in our board game life, because that's what this whole podcast thing is all about.
Well, some of this is bringing the things we like about board games and video games to other behaviors we want to encourage. Right? So, like, gamification is generally taking game elements to parts of life that are not about games.
Right.
In doing this research and having this discussion, I've definitely come to the conclusion that gamification is generally good when it helps give more of a framework to support your existing motivation to do a thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not good when it's either the only motivation to do a thing, or it encourages unintended behavior.
Like me doing math to keep my Duolingo streak?
Like you doing math to keep your Duolingo streak. Or like somebody playing the credit card points game just so they can get to a higher level of service at the credit card company.
Well, hold on, pause.
Or
okay.
whatever.
Because I abuse credit card points, I do need to make the point here. Spending irresponsibly to get the points.
Yes.
To do the thing.
Right. That's
which we don't
behavior.
do.
Right.
All right. I got to defend myself here.
I think some schools now are seeing with stuff like Duolingo and iReady Math and some other things that sometimes if kids don't have any other motivation to learn the foreign language or the math or whatever, they're just going to hammer the system or try to find ways around the intended learning to just get the rewards in the system. That's when gamification becomes a problem, when it's trying to substitute for real motivation.
Sure. I think that's fair.
I thought of a real world example from our own lives with kids.
Okay.
When our kids were younger, we did a little bit of gamification towards chores. We used to use these little cards with Velcro on the back. Do you remember those?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So when I was on top of my game, I would select which of these chores each kid needed to do every day, and I would stick them up on the wall. We had 3 little lines of soft Velcro to stick the cards to.
Actually, even more beautiful was they were the edges of shelves.
Yes. And the idea here was our kids removed the cards off the Velcro when they were done, which kind of felt like an achievement system in reverse.
Yes.
Having an empty line was your goal for the day. And when our kids were young, this kind of unlocked their ability to have screen time for the day. Like, really obvious visual signal for me as the parent. You still have cards up on the wall. No, you can't have screen time yet. Let's go see what these cards say. Oh, you still need to practice piano. You still need to put your laundry away. Whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I see that you removed your homework thing. Have you actually done your homework, or did you remove it because you were intending to do your homework?
Sure.
Speaking of gaming the system. But that's the kind of gentle achievement system or unlocking that can work to reinforce your intended behavior with kids.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I also feel like learning to read should naturally be progress-based without needing a lot of outside influence on that. Because as you learn to read, you are now able to read more difficult things or focus your attention on it longer. And now you can explore more about the topic you're most interested in or the format you're most interested in, like graphic novels or, nonfiction or whatever. I remember in my childhood, and I have seen it with some children we know, some schools make reading feel too achievement-based.
Mm-hmm.
That, like, you try to focus on, oh, well, you're at such and such a reading level. And because everybody gets stratified, there's this leaderboard effect where some kids are not reading for the sake of reading, they're reading for the sake of getting bumped up to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not bad, but it's still not a great motivation for reading, right? So, yeah. What about you all out there? Are you shouting at your radio phone?
Radio?
Whatever, right?
If we're on the radio, then
speakers.
I have missed something.
Are you shouting at your device playing this podcast and saying, I can't believe you didn't think of this kind of gamification? You should tell us.
I mean, I do think there is something to be said for, in our current society, the incredible amount of pressure that parents put on their children in the world of achievement, right? And I don't think it necessarily relates to what we're defining as gamification, but I've had a lot of conversations recently about sports with parents.
Sure.
And just, if your kid is not in travel league and making the all-star team of whatever sport and doing all of this stuff, are they now a disappointment? And you have to buy all the best things and pay the best coaches and do all of this stuff because you want your kid to reach that next level, right? And so that next level becomes this constant carrot on the end of the stick kind of a thing. And, when you talk about focusing on reading levels, like, it makes me think about that. And just like you got to get to the next, what's the next one?
Yeah.
And not a recognition that there's always going to be somebody better than you, and that's fine.
It can happen in academic competition as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have 2 kids in high school these days. They will talk about GPA and course difficulty and are they going to get into AP classes for next year and all that kind of stuff. There are a lot of other things tied up in that, but there is a certain amount of, I'm going to say, perverse incentive to do things just to make number go up rather than for the joy of learning or being a well-rounded person.
Yeah, and look, a lot of this, frankly, the onus is on parents, right? The onus is on parents to help kids recognize that they are allowed to be people without the accomplishment of it all, right?
Yeah.
It's just be a person. Like, it's fine.
And it's funny that we're saying this because without revealing too much information, we have one kid who pushes themselves to do absolutely the best at everything they do. And we have another kid who is like, you always told me grades don't matter. Now you're telling me grades matter. And I'm like, yes, because you're failing. For you, grades matter.
Yeah. Like, it's just not the A+. It's just maybe the B. Like, that's fine.
Could we bump it from a D up to like a C or a C+? That'd be great.
From an F to like a C or a C+ is where we're at right now. But that's not the point. That's not the point. So, yeah, look, I think this is an interesting conversation. It's an interesting topic because of things like chores and of things like all of the kind of natural stuff in our lives, but also the temptation to gamify literally everything to the point where you're pushing yourself. Like, I'll give you, this is a perfect example of this. You and I used to play Marvel Puzzle Quest.
I think we talked about this in the very early days of the podcast.
Probably. Yes. We both got super into it, right? I mean, we were never Bejeweled people, but you slap a Marvel theme on a match 3 game and we're just like, it was bad. It was really bad.
Well, so the original Puzzle Quest and Puzzle Quest 2 were fantasy-themed games with this kind of Bejeweled thing.
Yep.
And they had a storyline with a beginning, a middle, and an end. You could beat the game.
Yep.
Marvel Puzzle Quest was near the front line of what is now fairly typical online gaming of constantly new content, constantly more plot type things pulling you in, competitions, leaderboards, special drops, all of that. And that's why it became really dangerous, that it pulled us in, that both of us were playing the game more than we actually wanted to be playing the game.
Right, because the next thing was about to come. Marvel Puzzle Quest was also the first game that I remember that would do things like alternate art. And it's like, oh, I have 2 Storms already, but this is Storm with a mohawk, and that's different, right? Which you see in Marvel Snap all the time. Sure. And eventually, like, you and I were like getting up at 3 a.m. to get in on the, like...
I don't think I ever did that, but I was definitely playing the game at times when I should not have been playing the game. I should have been paying attention to our children, or I had other things I need to be doing. And I was like, well, I've got 5 minutes. I can play a game of this. and it was unhealthy.
We were following the schedule of the game
Yeah.
instead of just playing a little bit of the game in our lives.
Yeah.
That was a very dangerous level of gamification. And eventually, one day, you and I don't even know who started the conversation, but it was
we
like,
made a pact.
we need to quit. We need to quit right now. We need to delete this off our phones and be done with it. And we agreed to do that, and we did, and it was great. It was the right decision.
It was totally the right decision.
Yeah.
That is a great example of gamification gone off the rails.
Yeah. And the off the rails of it all, it was us, not the game. I mean, the game is doing what the game does and what all the games do.
Well, that's why I talked about like store loyalty programs, especially the ones that are connected with online stuff, can really easily lead you down that kind of path. I mean, I see stuff come up on my little Starbucks app. I have a Starbucks card, right? And I have the Starbucks app on my phone. And so it'll be like, oh, hey, if you do this thing today, you'll earn extra points. Or
double stars. Come on.
Yeah, whatever. Double stars, or get this deal with a star bonus if you order this thing twice in the next week, or whatever. And some of those seem personalized. And every time I look at it, I'm like, is that something I would do anyway if it was not trying to push me to? If the answer is no, then I need to just not do it.
Right. Gamification can have its value. We talk about chores, we talk about beat mods, we talk about all these things, but also it can be addictive and dangerous. And it's just something that in our lives, as we interact with this, it's something that we should just be judicious with, even as it can be a helpful thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, we're kind of a little bit all over the place, but like, I think this was a really interesting conversation about a really interesting topic. I think so. Maybe I'm biased, but that's fine.
It's okay to be biased. We acknowledge our bias. Yeah. So what about you, listener? Were you shouting at your speaker about some form of gamification that you think is really awesome or really terrible that we didn't talk about?
Anisha, are you taking my backtalk question?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Have you, and now I'm going to read it. Have you ever gamified anything at home that would normally just be a part of life? Maybe it's something to help you be motivated. Maybe it's something to help your kids be motivated. Maybe it's chores. Maybe it's fitness. Maybe it's something else entirely. Please share with us.
Yeah, you can tell us on the Backtalk channel in our Discord, or you can go to the Facebook community where Anisha will put a post. You can find us in that community by going to thefamilygamers.com/community or going to Facebook and searching for The Family Gamers Community.
There are also links to these in the show notes for this episode.
That is true.
You can also find us all over social media.
Yep, we are at Family Gamers AA on everything. Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, Threads, and YouTube.
You can also email us.
Andrew at thefamilygamers.com.
Anitra at thefamilygamers.com. Especially do this if you're resisting gamification in your life and you don't like social media.
Sure.
Please don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, tell your friends about the podcast, leave us a review at Apple Podcasts or wherever it is you subscribe. We're also on Amazon Music, TuneIn, Spotify, YouTube, including YouTube Music. We're really all over the internet, and you're already listening to us, so you already know how to find us. Music for the Family Gamers podcast is provided with permission by You Bred Raptors.
The Family Gamers is sponsored by First Move Financial. Go to firstmovefinancial.com/familygamers to learn how the team at First Move Financial can help you pile up the victory points.
I think that's going to be it for us this week.
I mean, I think we're done. We've finished the entire container of Ben & Jerry's.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is not something we gamified.
We did not. It is just delicious,
It's
and
just
we
gone.
gained calories. All right, we're going to burn these calories off with the gamified exercises that we're about to do.
Yes, we are.
So until next week, everybody, play games with your kids.